like kind of problematic to fly the Canadian flag and like kind of have that connection to like colonization, to the UK, to like Commonwealth, like just being part of this like oppression. Yeah, that's what it reminds me of, the flag. So I wouldn't say I'm not happy to be Canadian, but to me, the flag represents like more issues and more like ownership. It's like, I own this place, so this place is Canada, and my place.
Even if it's not. Obviously.
Exactly. It's like on stolen land. Great.
Yeah, I think that's I can relate to that. Okay, I showed this one.
Wow, that's a big baby. This is very strange. This looks to me like keeping out people from coming in. Like I would say, typically a fence to me is like keeping people out. And strange image because, you know, you have this kind of innocuous, this baby that's supposed to be like, oh, it's innocent, I'm just curious looking over the fence. And then these like border guards or some kind of authority figure just, I guess, presumably to try to keep people from entering. I think that's interesting.
And what is your relation? Like, do you have any personal experience with borders or any...
actually growing up, I grew up in Singapore. So, you know, it's a very small place and the border, like growing up, we would cross to go to Malaysia all the time. Like my parents have this obsession with crossing the border and getting cheap stuff. So we would drive from Singapore to get cheap gas. And it's always like, you know, this like checkpoint. With like all the security bays, somebody asks you questions, but it's always like, I always find it funny to cross the border because of all these like weird abstract rules. So my parents started going and getting gas, and then they realized in Singapore that where gas is more expensive than Malaysia, there's like, they start making rules up, like, oh, you need a quarter tank of gas to pass the border. So that every time you pass the border, they'll be checking your gas tank. And then my parents would like have this game of like, oh, how much gas do we put in before it's lower than a quarter? And if it's lower than a quarter, we might stop by a gas station, and like how many liters of gas do we need to make the quarter tank before we cross the border so we can maximize it. And then they increase it to half a tank. And it's really interesting. And I just remember as a kid, it's just like, why do you have to check the gas to cross the border? Like I think, and my parents always have this kind of like bad experience crossing the border, I think. And they're always just like, you have to be very quiet, you have to be very serious, there's no laughing when you cross the border, can't be suspicious, like, you know. So there's always like this sense of like, okay, you know, doing something very serious, crossing this border. And the same when we, you know, go to the States from Canada, there's always like a sense of a little bit of a fear of like being turned away or being like caught.
For something.
They're gonna catch you. They're gonna catch you and they wouldn't let you cross. And so it becomes this very serious thing.
But still, it seems like your the whole experience is not too bad because they're still doing it quite regularly, right? To get those cheap stuff.
Well, I mean, I guess it's not once a week. It's not bad, but it's just not good either. Right? It's really boring for a kid. For you to sit in the car, cross the border, and then your parents buy gas, and then you eat lunch, and then they buy some groceries, and then you go home. Like, it's not very fun, but it's fine. It's interesting too, just to think like, you're in Singapore, things look a certain way, then you like drive half an hour, you cross to another place, and it's like has its own identity altogether, and it's very different from Singapore. Even though geographically, like, it shouldn't be that different, but the culture is very different.
And your own, like, when you say that crossing the US border is like, you know, a bad experience in a way, or, you know, it doesn't really trigger positive emotions, does it make you like? Is this also the reason why, I don't know, we would say that you're not crossing the border that much or that often, or would you feel more free to travel or to go somewhere else if there wouldn't be any borders, or is this also like
I think
formality?
I think in a way, so I go to the US a lot, personally, because my brother lives in Portland and my nieces and nephew, like I have family there, so I go see them. So if I didn't have to go see them, I probably wouldn't drive down as much.
Yeah.
And the reason I wouldn't drive down as much is it's a hassle, first of all. Like, this huge lineup, you have to wait in the car, and then you just sit around and wait in a, like, essentially a parking lot to cross the border.
Yeah.
Like, I guess the act of crossing itself and, like, being interviewed by the customs officer is not that big of a deal. It's just more like, kind of like, if you know there's gonna be a traffic jam, it just kind of like not defeats the purpose, but makes it like more of a impediment to going, or your desire to go. Yeah. The other thing I do notice now that you said that is every time I'm in the States, again, like geographically, Seattle, Portland, are pretty similar places. Like I would say when you're in those places, you don't necessarily feel like, oh, I'm in a foreign space, like in Malaysia and Singapore. Like, it looks the same physically. But I have to say that when I come back, I often feel a sense of relief, even if it's just crossing through the Canadian border. And I'll just like see a Tim Hortons or something, and I'll be like, oh, I'm home. Like, I don't know what this like maybe increased or heightened sense of anxiety is, but maybe it's like, I don't know, like I don't really think about like people maybe having guns in the States, and we don't necessarily have that more. But I just remember distinctly one time I was at a park with my dog, and this guy was like, oh, can I pet your dog? But he asked really far away, like unusually far. And then as he's coming up, he opens his jacket slightly, and there's like a gun in the holster. Like, he's showing me he has a gun, and I was like, why did you have to show me? And I realized, like, in some states in the US, you can't have like you have to have a conceal and carry license, and part of it is that you have to show people you have a gun on you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that's really like just bizarre.
So that was in the US?
That was in Seattle.
Okay.
So
he was doing a proper thing by showing you.
Yeah, but I didn't know, right? Because like in Canada, you don't have people just walking around with guns, and like somebody's just coming to pet your dog. Like, it's kind of weird to be like, shouting from afar, hey, can I pet your dog? Yeah, sure. And it's like, flash open your jacket. It's like, oh, he has a gun. Oh shit, now he's coming towards me. Like, you ask first if he could pet before you show me the gun. Why did he show me his gun? Because I don't know why.
When he shows you the gun without saying anything, it would have been better.
Exactly. But then he also doesn't know I'm not American. He doesn't know, like, I wouldn't know that's like a conceal and carry or whatever the rules are. But then that kind of put me like on edge. Now he's coming near me. Now he's petting my dog. Now I'm like sitting there like, why does he have a gun? So I guess that whole circular story was just about like maybe our idea of US maybe not being as safe of a place.
Yeah.
And while I'm there, I don't necessarily think, oh, I'm really unsafe. But maybe there's a heightened sense of awareness that I don't even know, because for sure when I cross the border, every time without fail, I've mentioned this to many people, like I immediately feel a sense of relief.
Yeah. And do you think that this is a special thing about the US?
I think so.
So when you're coming back from, I don't know, you would, for instance, travel to Europe and you come back to Canada and you see a Tim Hortons and you feel like, is it also some sort of relief?
I'm like, depressing. This is depressing. My vacation's over. No, but I mean, to your point though, sometimes on vacation, depending on where it is, what you do, there is a sense of like, oh, I can't wait to come home, like whether it's like your own bed or whatever, but I don't know. I never thought about it. Maybe it's like country to country or your experience while traveling. Yeah. I would say sometimes there's certainly like feelings of depression that you're home and your vacation's over, but not when you go to the United States.
Yeah, I just wonder, like, if you should say, like, what is the precise, nature of this feeling when you're coming back? Like, of course, the one thing is probably like like repressed kind of